Well, Gary, I have probably been introduced 30 times or 40. That's the best introduction I've given. And I feel a little excited and anxious. Um, Thank you. That was amazing. So here we go on shame. This is a picture of shame. You can see it on the slide. She is holding her eyes so she can't see the disapproval of the faces looking at her. The hands above her head are pressing down on her. She is miserable. Shame has been called the cesspool of emotions. When researching it, participants have described shame using terms including devastating, noxious, consuming, excruciating, filleted, small, separate from others, rejected, diminished, and the worst feeling ever. And now we will spend time exploring it somatically, energetically, and its psychological origins. Sounds fun, huh? But first, let me tell you how I became acquainted with shame. It was the third year of my bioenergetic training and my third year of bioenergetic therapy. I began to experience an awful feeling about myself. Therapist, that I think I was feeling shame. The topic of my master's thesis was embarrassment and its relationship to body image and self-concept. And I had found a brief mention of shame in the literature. But that was 1969, and shame was not considered a primary emotion. My therapist told me that there was no such thing as shame. It was a racket that parents use to control their children. I knew, however, that what I felt was a deeper feeling that needed to be explored. I then discovered a book by Helen Block Lewis entitled Shame and Guilt in Neurosis. She analyzed hundreds of psychotherapy sessions and identified shame as the dominant emotion experienced by clients, exceeding anger, fear, grief, and anxiety. Lewis's findings regarding the importance and prevalence of shame continues to be supported by shame researchers employing diverse methodologies and working from various fields of study. Slide 2. Shame is a relational response to rejection of ourselves. Violan, in the previous webinar, spoke about entering bioenergetics feeling suicidal. In therapy, she was able to feel her needs in a cathartic expression so that she no longer had to self-attack. So with shame, we don't want to feel that rejection again. So we experience our needs for contact, warmth, acceptance, and our sexual desires as shameful. Somatic contractions function so as not to feel that shame and rejection again. Now, men and women generally, this is a general response, are rejected for different reasons. Physical appearance, sexuality, sensitivity. Outliers are people outside the major culture and have felt their rejection. Bisexuals, gays, Jews, Muslims, to name a few, have not only been shamed, but physically assaulted and murdered. And outliers are parts of us that, when expressed, were rejected. Our needs that became solidified in holding patterns in our muscles so as not to feel that need again, leaving our nervous systems overly reactive. So when charge builds in that area, needing to be expressed, it is suppressed, sometimes even leading to dissociation, preventing us from knowing that we even have these needs. Slide 3. Shame and guilt differ in that guilt is the feeling of having done something wrong. Shame is an experience of being bad, wrong, or disgusting. When a person has been shamed and angrily rejected for who he or she is, there is no prescribed way back to the relationship. Well, guilt is redeemed through acts of reparation and atonement. There is no way out of a shame experience. Nothing you can do will mitigate its effects. It has happened. You are revealed in front of the other, and you cannot hide that part of yourself which is so unacceptable. It is not a behavior. It is an aspect of you that you yourself experience as stupid, ugly, loud, weak, seductive, needy, pathetic. And as bioenergetic analysts, we focus a lens on what is embodied in a shame response. Slide 4. The biology of shame and embarrassment. Shame is an innate, biologically present from birth. It can dilate the blood vessels in the periphery, tends to linger for quite a long time until the subject recovers. I like this quote. Shame involves a short fuse and a slow burn. Slide 5. Unlike anger, anxiety, fear, excitement, these emotions are more readily linked to the muscles of the face, which disappear rapidly. Shame tends to linger for quite a long time. It's a short fuse and a slow burn. Shame stays. Slide 6. Embarrassment is a flash of heat, primarily in the face. While in shame, more blood circulates to the peripheral muscles. So, shame, like shock, is a dorsal vagal shutdown. It is activating the peripheral muscles for fight, flight, or contact. Now, embarrassment has a flush of excitement, while shame has fear and loathing of self. Embarrassment and shame can occur together. You're embarrassed because you forgot to show up at a restaurant to meet a friend. You are appalled at your own behavior and apologize profusely. And if it is accepted, especially with empathy, I see how bad you feel about this, you might be able to forgive yourself. If the friend remains hurt and is rejecting of you, you may feel anxious and ashamed. People do not use pleasant words when asked to describe this feeling of shame, the cesspool of emotions. Slide 7. Shame has this pulling in of energy. The face drops, eyes turn down, shoulders pull forward, and the upper body collapses. It is a shock, a vagal shutdown. It leads to a lowering of the blood pressure and slowing of the heart. It stimulates and shuts down the others. This vagal stimulation. With embarrassment, we feel heat, the redness of the face. We may experience the feelings of giddiness, foolishness. With shame, the person is depressed. Although blood is available to the periphery, the core feeling is cold, alone. The self is rejected and no good. Slide 8. Embarrassment and shame are biologically determined responses demanding modesty. Concealment is a preparation for a potential danger, and shame has been intimately linked to cover. So Schneider argues that Darwin and Ellis, in their treatment of shame, fail to recognize this addition to fear, flight, anger, and aggression. A third reaction to danger is concealment and immobility. The fight, flight are well-known responses to danger. To disappear, part that is unacceptable. Slide 9. Shame is felt and received through the eyes. This is very important because as I talk next in slide 10, shame is a negative experience of the self. It is a momentary destruction of the self and acute self-denigration. So infancy is about 3 years of age when we are so susceptible to the contact from our parents. As someone said, shame is biologically determined. We can hear that, feel the contact in our body, and may not even have the words to go along with it. We're so young. And then during the teenage years, we have the words, but we're especially prone to narcissistic disturbances in a development, like being called a dirty Jew. But this was brought up in introduction by Gary, and it just triggered some memories. Shame is a response of the self, overwhelmed by unmirrored grandiosity. Yes, look at you. So infancy to about 3 years. We can especially see this in the susceptibility to shame in what was called a still face experiment. It was part of a research protocol that one of my fellow graduate students published and has become quite well known. This experiment went like this. Mothers of children from about 6 months to 16 months were encouraged to play with their children. Children were very excited. They got the mother's contact. It was playful. But then the mothers were told to leave the room for 5 minutes. It's a long time for a child at that age. And on their return, they were instructed to sit with their children, but show no facial expression. So the children tried to engage their mother, vocalizing, reaching towards them, trying to get some contact and excitement. But eventually, they gave up. This is the body response that the children saw they display. And if you so wish,
Perdonami, a volte non ti vediamo perché hai il foglio di fronte alla webcam.
okay, got it. Thank you. Good, because I need you to see my face. If you wish, I invite you to experience this in your own body. While you're sitting with your feet flat on the floor, drop your head, pulling your shoulders. Let them come up and then forward. Sit like that. And while you're sitting, try to find a word or words to describe what you feel. This is what the researchers saw in the face and bodies of the children whose excitement wasn't mirrored. It looked like a primitive chain response. They didn't have the internal dialogue, but they had that body response that had been present at birth as a response to shame. We see the same need for mirroring, especially during our teen years, when we are dependent on the peer group to define our self-worth and value. Now, I was born the first girl in my extended family. My brother, my older brother, was the firstborn. All that attention and excitement. But a year and a half later, my uncle and aunt had their own first son. And then 6 months later, after him, I was born. My older brother resented sharing the attention and would tell me how ugly and stupid I was. And then later asked to be forgiven and wanted to be close. Thus, after feeling a great deal of positive attention, I could be flush with the excitement. And then later, the attack became a self-attack, a shame response. It was many years before I could understand this connection between my excitement and the shame that followed. I was also, but because of his own confusion about my emerging sexuality, he would sometimes deliver verbal insults at me. A perfect storm for shame. Killers of excitement. Slide 11. Then we develop these defensive reactions to shame. And these are well-known responses to shame. We project blame and anger onto a convenient scapegoat. Nazis on the Jews when they were in an economic depression. Or we can focus on another emotional state, an act of emotional substitution, often anger. You made me feel bad, so you're going to get it back. So at first, in bioenergetics, the thought was that anger was sitting behind shame and needed to be released. Maybe that is because shame is a state of shock. And when coming out of shock, of the frozen immobility of it, fight, initiated. Or there's another fight response to shame can also be making nice, a defense against the abandonment. We can use a fight response, using the anger and aggression to defend ourselves. Though hopefully, when safe, we can begin to acknowledge the hurt and vulnerability hiding behind our anger. Now, if you show wish, you can show an offensive responses to shame. In this one, I'm going to ask you, if you choose, to stand with your feet on the ground. As you stand, lock your knees. Swing your pelvis back in that cocked position and hold it. Breathe in, expanding the air in your chest, pulling in your stomach. Jet out your chin. There is a pulling upwards in the body. Observe how it feels to be in that body. It's fun to do this in training, which I will do it with other people, these two things. It's really powerful. But while you're in that body right now, try to find words or images to describe it. Powerful, rigid, inflated, maybe defensive. That is the body of narcissism, the defense against shame. Now I'm going to let you soften by bending your knees. Long, low exhale, letting your pelvis relax. Shake some of the tension loose. Shake your legs. And if you want, you can sit down now. In the conference, we will explore this in depth. So, slide 12. Shame. No, excuse me, slide 8. I'm sorry, you guys. Slide 8. It's shame and the culture. Men tend to feel shame around vulnerability and need, and women, their sexuality. Briefly, female sexual abuse and shame. Female sexual abuse, overstimulation of the pelvis with the cultural conditioning to keep the charge down and not become too excited. So we have shame for having these sexual feelings, which can lead an attempt to control them, self-attack, cutting, overeating, and drugs. Or a defensive attack may be levied against the therapist to protect against the bad self. And the therapist may even often be accused. These are generalized responses to shame given our culture. The Me Too movement was instrumental in healing shame for women around their sexuality. Bringing these issues out of the shadow and into the light has been instrumental in their healing. Slide 13. Outlier. Outliers are different. They are the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that can't find their place in the picture. A Jew in the Bible Belt. But there also are needs which weren't met and our shame about them. And we can find them disgusting, and they become our outliers. And outliers are especially susceptible to shame. People who aren't heterosexual, or of one gender, or a minority religion, or race, or economic class, or physically or mentally divergent, have been tormented by internalizing the cultural rejection. And each of us have outliers that live inside us. These are our self parts that parents couldn't connect with. I sit with clients and watch as they berate themselves for being too needy when they are clearly expressing their needs, when they are currently expressing their wants. They berate themselves for being wimpy when confronted with real life scary issues. Those needs which weren't met are our shame, and we find them disgusting. Bioenergetics encourages us, undresses us, and how clients hide or treat themselves badly when experiencing them. As therapists, we need to hunt those self parts out and nourish them. So this is a little exercise when I found out about healing shame. It actually occurred after I gave a keynote at a conference. And I don't think I was even a local trainer, international trainer. I was expected to give a keynote after I'd given a shame workshop. I got a standing, first I thought the room was really quiet when I got done. And I froze. And then I didn't know what to do. So I started singing this Hebrew song to find myself. Ine matavu menachem. And as I did that, I got a standing ovation. And I kind of froze still, and my friend had to lead me off. That week, I heard what a wonderful person I am. And my husband had to hear it, and my friends. And I started to feel miserable. And I didn't get it till a bike ride. But I later, why I felt so, I was saying horrible things to myself. So I turned up the volume. And I asked, where in this body am I tense when I hear this voice? Awful in my gut or chest. So I instructed myself to breathe in that area. And after I settled down, I asked myself the question, would I be saying those same things to somebody I did not like? Pretty awful. And then I asked another question. Was there anything useful in that, what the voice was saying? There often was. It was just relentlessly awful. Groups are great. That's why trainings are great, when you can humanize the experience. When I hear people berate themselves, I hear my own voice and I have empathy for others. Like, wow, they're really down on themselves. That gives me back empathy for myself. Now, this last slide 15, I really think is important. And it's important beyond shame, but especially susceptible to shame. Because shame is so triggered in bioenergetic therapy, because we're so revealed. And I want you to really get this. What you're looking at is what's called the Eppinghaus forgetting curve. This is a very new recent finding in the field of neuroscience. It describes how long, once you read a memory trace, it lasts. And what you can see, there's an initial sharp drop when you look at that curve in the memory trace. Look at it again in my paper. It drops really fast anyway. It goes like this and then it out over time. And so that means that when a positive healing experience in therapy occurs, you want to prolong its memory to keep that memory trace from dissipating. You want to really reinforce it. And on the opposite spectrum, you do not want to increase the time for negative memory experiences, which especially you want to avoid the client at the end of the session feeling shame. You want to elongate the span of good memories, locking in the positive sensations, the images, the beliefs, and emotions about the self. At the end of sessions, I often instruct clients to pay attention to those somatic experiences in images until a next session and try to rehearse them and bring those sensations, images, and thoughts about back into their wellness and consciousness. So I'm always struck by probably one of the most natural therapists of our time. I want to have a quote from Mr. Rogers. And he would always end his television show. I like you just the way you are.
Thank you, Helen. Helen, can you hear me?
Definitely.
Helen, the Ebbinghaus curve is just shown on the screen. The slides were the last slide didn't show. Can you just explain that curve again for people?
Okay.
The Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. You were
It also
explaining how
have it
you were
in a,
explaining how very important that curve is.
okay, and I'm going to find it. I have a big,
It's on the screen now, Helen.
Is it on the screen?
Yes, if you just talk to that again, you were talking about how long the memory trace lasts, and it would be helpful, I think, just to repeat maybe the last paragraph of your talk again, explaining the curve.
Okay, it dissipates very sharply over time at beginning. And by 1 hour, you can see at the graph. I'm looking for a picture of my own graph that I printed up that I had here going through, naturally. Anyway, it goes like this,
Yeah,
and then
people can see it on
and
the
then it
screen.
expands out. So what you have at the bottom is time. And so you have the trace, right? It's really
Right,
strong, but it's going to dissipate very quickly.
right,
In 1 hour, it's going to go really fast. And
right,
over days, it's going to be gone. So you have a really good feeling. And say you're half hour into the session. You have like half hour to go. So what you do is you go, wow, where do you feel that in your body? Where's the positive feeling?
yeah,
When you think about that, what kind of images come to mind? You have
right,
may have even had them give a positive memory before that, where they felt really good and seen and excited. And yes, you're reaching out. You don't need to be ashamed. You're fine. Can you feel the pleasure of that? Can you see me when you reach? Can you imagine? Yes, it's okay to have a need. Feel what
right,
happens in your chest when I say that. And they may just go on and on and on to lock it in.
right. Thanks, Helen. Helen, thank you very much for your talk. You've covered quite a range of, um, of topics, about when it develops, the power of shame, how it affects the sense of self. Um, Helen, at this stage, I can't see any questions that have come in. So what that means is you and I are going to have a conversation about shame and maybe expand on some of the points you've made. Uh, um, so is that okay if you and I have a chat for a while?
I love it. I love the question you asked just reading it about how can a 3-year-old have shame without a sense of self? That was such a good question.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a question come in, but if you and I just continue just that point before I put the question to you. In your slides, you say that like shame develops from infancy right through and especially in adolescence. And I was sort of asking you the question privately in our emails with each other. When does a baby or a young child, first experience shame? And so, do you want to just talk about that a wee bit more?
Well, there was a quote from a book it's had it published. It says that was the baby looks at the light in the mother's eyes and it puts edges on their body and encourages them to separate. What I am instructed with is what that delight in your mother's face and the excitement. And you can see the baby flush with excitement. When they were playing, they had their mother's undivided attention. Nothing else was going on in that room. So the baby's like, ha, ha, ha. So what happens? And this is what it feels like in shame. It's like someone pulled the plug. It's like all this, like even embarrassment. There's like, I see you, you're cute, and it's like your speech to me, okay? I got embarrassed. I was heat. I didn't feel shame. I felt excitement and anxiety. That introduction was like, I'm being seen. So a little embarrassment.
Yeah.
The shame response is, I'm not there. They don't want to see me. I don't count. And so the baby deflates. And it's that same deflation you feel in your body with shame. And you don't have words because shame is like a punch in the gut, you know? And the charge, it was all there in that baby, you know? It's in the periphery, it's the contact, it's ready. And then it's like, and it's all that charge is still there.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that ingrained biological response. And then it's
Yeah.
the hiding. I'm hiding. I can't look.
Yeah.
I want to see it again. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
pee.
Right.
Because they tried and tried and tried. The babies laugh and giggle and be cute and reach, and then they're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's different from the oral. The oral is missing physical contact, right?
Yeah.
The shame is through the eyes and the voice. I think the voice is so real. We is a new thing. It's really important. And
Yeah.
they're getting nothing from their mothers. Not getting the voice. I think the voice is a big thing of excitement too.
Right. Helen, we've got a couple of questions come in, and Tame asks, what kind of exercises are helpful to support the client to move through shame when it comes up, but is quickly defended against? So if you see shame come up in a client in a session, but then it's defended against and it disappears. So Tamay wants to know what kind of exercises might be helpful to support the client moving through shame.
This is where your therapeutic bioenergetic skills, the skill set, which is I noticed you had a bad feeling and then it left and you're engaged, but I'm concerned that something may have happened or I may have done that made you feel so bad. I saw it and I see you're okay now, but I'm concerned and I care that maybe there's a way that something happened.
Right.
It's that empathy, and you don't know what it is. All you're doing is being concerned. I don't have an in. I had a big argument with this about empathy for dinner, that it had to be an intellectual understanding. I said, it's just see it. You can just feel it in your body. You don't even know what you've done, but you can feel or happened to them, but
Yeah.
you feel it. You see it. And they may not want to talk about this. Say, I'm okay. I say, well, I really hope you're okay because I care about you to being okay.
Yeah. Connection. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really the one place where you make connection. And the problem with bioenergetics is actually shame our clients when we find out the outliers. And we're shaming them in some ways. We're not shaming them, but we're bringing up their shame. I know parts of myself I really don't like and don't
Yeah,
like to show.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
so there's got to be some kindness from you.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that kindness is really, that connection is really important because um, sometimes we're bringing people to awareness of their bodies, and they may not have had that awareness before. So our very our very modality sort of brings up the shame of the body as well.
Exactly. And the body is in protection of a need
Right.
that wasn't allowed or humiliated for. There's humiliation that you really want to be careful. Just because you know it doesn't mean it's helpful for you to, it's how you deliver it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Helen, we've got a few more questions. Letitia would like to know, uh, she'd like to clarify how we should proceed when the client is ashamed. Do you ask the client to remember a good memory and keep that sensation of a good memory until the next session? Uh, so, I mean, it's similar to the first question in a way, like how do we proceed when shame is in the room? Yeah. Mm.
I say, I think you're feeling a lot of shame,
Mm.
wondering how you can connect with me in a way that feels safe now and let me know that I see you're miserable over there. Is there something you need from me, or can we talk about how miserable you are?
Yeah.
And just you have to stay with it for a while and that you can stay with it. I don't want to get them out of it right away. They
Yeah.
first have to know and identify when you're in a shame response. I didn't know. It
Yeah.
was like, I think I'm feeling this thing. And I didn't even know about the negative thing in my head. That was a whole year and a half later.
Yeah.
And I put the thing with my brother to 4 years after that.
Right. Yeah.
Because I would go to a party and get lots of attention and be really happy and have a good time. And then an hour later, attack myself with everything I might have done wrong. I revealed too much. It's like, this is crazy. This would happen over and over again. And
Right.
I needed someone to say,
I just lost the sound there for a minute. Yeah.
yeah, you went to a party. You were fine. We enjoyed you.
Yeah.
Really? I wasn't too much. I didn't get too much attention. I didn't
Yeah.
take up too much space.
Yeah. Helen, one of the things I've done sometimes with clients who have got deep shame uh, is actually ask them to experience it. What I've suggested is, they've been lying on a mattress, and I've asked them to lie on the mattress, face the wall away from me, hold a cushion in front of their body, and actually feel the bitterness and the awfulness of that shame state. Like actually experience the shame so that they can taste it and taste the awfulness of it, just how bitter and revolting it is. And sometimes that's been helpful.
Especially when they're defending against it.
Yeah,
Especially when they've been hiding and defensive. And then that's where the vulnerability is.
Yeah.
really supporting their vulnerability.
Yeah.
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 And staying with them with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're staying with it. Yeah. And Monica asks, can you work through it through covering and uncovering the face and the eyes? Because you were saying it's in the eye, it comes in through the eyes. And in your first picture, the first slide actually had the woman covering her face. And so I guess having a person cover their face and their eyes is one way of allowing them to experience the actual shame.
And to invite them, this is a great, I love these. These are great exercises. Thank you. To take a peek and look at your face and see what they see in you. You're
Yeah.
caring about their suffering.
Yeah.
They care about them.
Yeah.
And they can peek and cover and peek and cover. And this is really what I think, Gary, you're talking about is the oscillation when we work with trauma, where
Right.
they're in the state of trauma and you're oscillating with how much they can manage and down regulate it. And these are
Right.
wonderful techniques for it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very helpful.
Good. Um, One of the things you touched on in your slides was, the cultural aspects of shame in terms of men's vulnerability and women's sexuality. And I know you've made a study of the effect of shame on women. I'm just wondering whether you can talk about those, which might call the cultural aspects of shame a bit more.
Well, things have changed so much since I first started writing, and women aren't so much ashamed of their sexuality. Although there's still the question, and you still hear therapy, you as a woman were provocative. You invited him to make the advances with you. You were flirting. Of course, he thought you wanted to have sex with you. So then the response is, well, I went out with you and I didn't get any signals that you were interested and you just seemed cold. um, how much projection is put on women's sexuality in terms of their responsibility? Um, it was so prevalent in my culture. I remember this clearly. My mother would say, go good night to the brothers and talk to them and say good night to me and say something like, well, you should be a virgin when you get married. And this was the times, okay? There was no birth control. I said, well, what did you tell the boys? Well, there's a little different. I go, really? And then as I grew older and more mature, the fear of what happens to women um, around that. Uh, and it's still hard. Women are
Yeah.
still having a hard time, even with the Me Too movement, being blamed, being blamed. Just like we have stereotypes, you see a black guy in a neighborhood and he doesn't belong there, and then he ends up going to,
Lost the
yeah.
sound.
Helen,
Helen.
they can see you.
Yeah. Sorry.
They can hear you. Sorry.
Right. Thanks, Alicia. Helen, you were talking about sort of um, um, how Black Americans might be feeling shame. I remember when I first went to the United States from New Zealand, I was very excited to finally be in the United States. And I remember going onto a bus, and I sat next to this young Black man, Black American, and I'm from New Zealand and we're very friendly here. And I thought, I'll talk to this American. And I could see that my sitting next to him, uh, that he felt somewhat ashamed, that I could feel his contraction, that here's this white dude coming in and sitting next to him. And it just struck me the power of Black Americans' experience is, as a stranger to the United States, I was able to pick that up immediately, that this guy was feeling shame because a white dude sat beside him.
I remember entering kindergarten and one of the teachers saying, well, you wouldn't want to really be comfortable sitting next to a Black person on a bus. I had just spent the night with my cousin and a Black woman was the daughter of the woman who cleaned her house in bed. We'd had a slumber party. And something changed inside me. It wasn't, I just felt an internal shift. And I still feel it. It was very hard, like, whoa, I remember that anxiety. I had done something I wasn't supposed to be comfortable. And that
Yeah,
discomfort gets exchanged over and over again.
yeah,
It comes through so strongly.
yeah, 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 yeah. Helen, there's a couple of other questions come in. Rosa asks, is there a reference text where you can find bioenergetic exercises to help with shame? And of course, there's your own article in the Bioenergetic Journal. But are there other texts that uh, you...
Oh, they do. There's all these, the workshops where you're different colors and how you treat people with your projections. There's been a lot of workshops on that kind of racial equality and shame. But interestingly, about shame is to feel it in your body in a group working with other people and having it mirrored. And that has to be in a group. And I kind of do some of it at the conference. But and there's all sorts of ways you can make one group less than the other group and implant it and feel it. But the real healing occurs. And that's why the groups have been so powerful. When you hear somebody else talk about how badly they feel about themselves. I remember doing a women's group many years ago in my internship, and women were starting to attack different parts of their body. And one woman said she hated her knees. And all the other women, which was young, said, that's ridiculous. How can you hate your knees? Your knees are... Find a body part, and we don't like it, and we're ashamed of it. And you may think her knees are fine, but she doesn't. And we need to get that we all are finding that. And groups are so good at unveiling that. Shame in groups. Once
Yeah,
someone feels, it also helps to just, feel held by your therapist too.
yeah. Can you talk a wee bit more about dealing with shame in groups? Because you know, you went over that fairly fast, but I guess people sharing their experience in groups, and it's like me too, as it were. But can you talk a wee bit about group experience of shame?
Yes. I have an experience of shame around a comment my father made to me. And just even thinking about it, I can feel ashamed.
Wow.
Um, Now, if I heard another client say that, I would go, what's going on with him? Seems like he's having a little trouble dealing with you being 16. Um, but when I feel it inside, to say it out loud, it's like, mm.
Mm,
But if I said it in a group of women who I'd sit with and we'd work and I could see their holding and their eye contact, it wouldn't be hard. To say it over the internet like this, no.
yeah.
And it was one word,
Wow.
but I feel a lot of anxiety and shame around it. But I wasn't talking to my girlfriends
Right. Right. Yeah. So
and
validated.
and also with less comfortable with men.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could feel the support of women in that. Less comfortable with men. And men not even have a trouble with it. You know, it could be my projection.
Yeah. 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 You're talking about like sharing that with women, and Chiaretta is sort of asking, can you tell us more about the dynamics of male shame? And I've worked with a lot of men, so I mean, I'd like to add something in too about that. But uh, Chiaretta wants to know about dynamics of male shame. What can you say about that?
About men.
Yeah, and
A
shame.
good example for bioenergetic therapist. I have men over the barrel of breathing stool. They're reaching. They're crying at me. They're sobbing. They get off the breathing stool and stand. I say, "How are you?" "Fine." "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm just fine." They were sobbing on the floor 3 minutes ago, and they're standing up and they're telling me everything's fine. And they're going, "Oh,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
experience."
yeah,
It was way too much. Their vulnerability threatened them terribly. Okay, I'm really glad you're fine, but there's another part of you that I have a lot of feeling for.
yeah, yeah,
And they know it happened. They know that when you compartmentalize, you know, but you do
yeah,
not want to deal with it
yeah,
at all.
yeah,
And men, self-disclosure experiments. Women self-disclose more. Women and men self-disclose more, their vulnerability. Men least of all.
yeah,
To be vulnerable in front of another man is threatening. And maybe some of this is biologically determined because in neuroscience, women have a wider area between their corpus callosum, which means a woman can tell you how lousy you are and cry and still keep going and giving you a very coherent response on what you've done wrong. Men with the breathing stool, they're either falling apart and they can't think. The left and right brain, they don't have as much going on. They can't think. So they're just really disorganized at a loss. But when you think about hunting and a tiger's coming at you, a woman may go, "Where's my kid? Is it safe?" Man just goes, kills the tiger. It bypasses that other part, keeps them alive. And then we enter a culture where things are a little broader. Men nurturing babies, when you look at their brain, have a wider connection between the left and the right brain. There's more going on. The nurturance, the ability to be emotional and vulnerable is developed. So there isn't the development for a part of their brain looking at themselves with kindness.
Right, right. Yeah, that's helpful to realize those biological and structural elements in the brain that are different between men and women. Yeah, yeah. One of the things I do sometimes with men is uh, explain the what's called the shame compass. Have you come across that? The shame compass, where um, Michael Maley talked about that, where um, like the 4 points, if there's a disconnection with something good, the first reaction is withdrawal, which you've talked a lot about. The second is attack self, all those negative shame things. The third thing is to try and override that by manic sort of behavior, like overdoing it, become a workaholic, alcoholic, sugarholic, or whatever. And I've found that men quite a bit go into that. I'll keep busy, 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 busy to try and override the shame experience. Uh, I'm just wondering. And the fourth part of that shame compass was if those things don't work, you attack others, you know. So you've talked about that attack on others. So when I've drawn that shame compass, people can identify, oh, yeah, I know the self attack part. That's all those self critic, those vicious, all those words you used earlier on. But men sort of can identify with that overdoing something, just go, go, go to try and override.
It dissipates the anxiety.
Yeah,
That's why I was riding my bike. I came up.
right.
So you don't feel, there's a lot of anxiety and shame.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think keep busy, don't think about it. You don't feel your anxiety around it.
yeah, yeah,
And then you're okay, you're good, but it's never good enough.
yeah, yeah. Helen, we may not be able to do it, but Bruno has asked about he wondered if the last slide about healing shame and those 5 points can be uh, shown again. But, you know, in your slide 14, you had the negative shame voice about turn up the volume, where in my body am I tense, breathe into that. Would I talk to someone like that? Was there something was there useful information? You know, you talked about your own experience of finding that technique, but I just wonder whether you could go over that once more as a helpful technique uh, that people might be able to use when they're working with someone experiencing shame. There it is. Uh,
Okay, good. Now, one of the things too, I have people write these things down in the session and practice them on themselves. So most time when you think people are having a shame attack, you say, well, don't listen. So it seemed negatively intuitive at first to turn up the volume. But if you don't turn up the volume, you're having what I was having, a subliminal, not knowing what was making me so anxious and driving me. I wasn't really hearing it. So I was suppressing it a bit. So when I turned up the volume, I could become more aware of kind of the anxiety I was feeling, um, and what was actually saying to myself instead of trying not to listen to it, which wasn't really working. Um, and so I noticed when I turned up that volume, I had a tension in my throat, my chest, my belly, all that vulnerable front parts. I could feel a kind of tension, not breathing. When I think about it, maybe a bracing from the diaphragm up, not sure. But when I ask people, they almost always say they feel it in their chest and a little bit in their diaphragm. Then I breathe into the area so I can start to let go of some of that tension and start to, because I can't think when I'm that tense. I'm just, it's a constriction. The constriction doesn't really allow you the calmness to have some thoughts about it. And this is the question I really liked. Some of you may not have as nasty minds as I do, but would I talk that way to someone I didn't like? Now, I'm aware that I could say some really nasty things like, that was really stupid. I can't believe you did that. How are you going to face everyone? I mean, what have you done? Now they're all thinking about, this is a shame. Now they're all thinking, of course, they're not thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. But when you're in a shame response, it's a real attack on your narcissism. Was there any useful information that the voice was saying? Okay, for me, maybe you need to see how much attention and focus you can really tolerate from people. Um, Check in. Am I saying too much? How are we doing? Or am I okay? I'm talking a lot, in the crowd. Maybe I'd like to hear what other people are doing. Um, no, you're funny, go on. I go, yeah, but just pull back. So I'm not flooded with all that attention. And it gives me a chance, I think, to say, okay, maybe you need to not get so excited. It's dangerous for you. I mean, you like getting excited. It feels good. It's an addiction. But maybe you need to just see how safe you're going to actually feel afterwards, whether it's okay. Because the programmed attack is programmed in my body afterwards. And that's a deep programming. And so, um, yeah, sometimes there is some useful information. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes they're saying, hey, voice, back off. You're really mean, and I don't really need to listen to that, and I'm fine. And get out of my cloud. I'm having a good time. And that's okay too. But check in.
We've got a few more questions. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think it's been very useful to go over that healing shame again. We've got a few more questions come in, Helen. Um, Giuseppe's made it. I'm not sure whether this is a statement or a question. Giuseppe says, shame can be relegated to the family sphere, while outside the family circle, there's more active participation and playfulness. Like those feelings can be expressed more playfully outside in a social sphere, that there's an intensification, I guess, of shame in the family environment. Are there any comments on that, like the shame in the family versus
Oh,
social?
yes. Oh, yes. So much that um, you have a parent who's an alcoholic and not a very nice alcoholic, and you don't want to invent, you're afraid to invent children to your house, your friends, because you're ashamed of what your father's going to start behaving, or sometimes just too friendly, just okay, it's kind of in your space. So you go to a friend's house or a teacher. Teachers are so important.
Mm.
I had a sixth grade teacher who loved my sense of humor. She just delighted in it and would just keep it going in the classroom. Um, and I felt so appreciated. But when I came back in the family, it wasn't seen that funny. It was more like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think that like, and then it would become being a Jewish, an intellectual debate about how we see, it became an intellectual argument. But my sixth grade teacher thought it was hysterical.
Right. Yeah.
In fact,
Well,
so by seventh grade, I did a stand-up comedy routine at her encouragement.
in this
I mean,
location.
and we have teachers, we have friends of our, friends. We go to their house and things are really different. In our house, and no.
Yeah. Yeah. The questions are really coming in now. Suzanne asks, she says, thank you for your profound input on shame. Uh, she mostly works with people who've experienced sadistic trauma and they have high dissociation. She wants to know how you could handle uh, shame when it leads to serious dissociation and eye contact is not possible, where someone is quite dissociated and they're completely shamed and dissociated, like extreme people have
Uh,
experienced extreme trauma.
First, you have them see if they can find something to look in the room that's safe. And you don't have them look at the eye contact in you because it's overwhelming and too much. And so with the association, you're always titrating how much they can experience. Um, and sometimes I will deliberately look away someplace else in the room so they can check me out without being watched. Um, and dissociation needs to be done very slowly. And there's often dissociation and shame. And you don't want to have them have eye contact with you right away, to look away, peek up, look away. They can't. They can't. Um, and what's terrifying when you've been treated sadistically is not only seeing their sadism, but feeling your own.
Uh,
And so sometimes before you want to even address that, you want to really get them to experience letting their own sadism, like that person treated you badly. I want you to look at over there and let them know how it is and come through your eyes. It really, that's going to take a long time to work through. And the shame, um, when you allow them to experience their own sadism, and that it wasn't the masochistic part didn't have anything to deal with them and
mm,
nothing to deal with them. It was a
mm,
sadistic parent. And
yeah.
and can own some of that sadism in themselves. I often will talk to people about righteous anger, and given what you said, I might have feelings I'd like to watch somebody die slowly if they did that to me. I might like to watch them suffer how I have suffered. But that's who I am. And
Right.
and the reason for me, not just for them, I'm aware the more I'm in touch with my own sadism, I won't leak it with a
Right.
zing.
Yeah.
And I talk about that. I gotta own this. Or I'll zing it.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, if somebody did that to me, and then you know what I also had to do
Mm.
is somebody's talking. I remember this client had this very sadistic boss and some kind of sexual gesture with her eyes and I just got up out of my chair and I ran over and slammed the door. And I said, you have to stop doing that now. And she looked at me and she said, I've been to 4 therapists and the first time I feel safe in the room. I couldn't take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's really, yeah.
that stops the shame
Yeah.
because it's shaming
Yeah.
her. It's horrible. Horrible
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's
It's,
no prescribed way.
yeah. And you can use quite a bit of humor as well in helping people sort of express their sadism, like
Yeah,
lighten it up, but sort of almost taste it and enjoy it.
I do use a lot of humor. I
Yeah.
I don't know how people get by without humor. I don't
Right.
get it. I downregulate. And also it removes me from the absurdity, craziness of this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Mino, uh, I think Mino may be a psychoanalyst, and Mino says, I used to say in a session that not only dreams are a way to the unconscious, but shame too is a way to the unconscious. And I encourage the patient to feel it and express it and all the free associations, feelings, and fantasies about their shame. And they found it's very precious and useful in a psychoanalytic approach. But the patient has to be encouraged and accompanied in that. So that's an interesting observation. Like in a psychoanalytic setting, seeing shame as a pathway to free association and sort of more unconscious.
What she is providing and what a good analyst provides is a holding environment where she can hold the those parts. And I think you cannot do any good therapy without providing that holding environment that
Mm,
she is providing. It's not just the unconscious. She's saying, I am here for all of you. I'm here to hold all of you, and I can hold it. I will be with you. I will not turn away from you. I will understand it. And 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 the problem with shame is unconscious, but it's conscious at the same time. And to have a an analytic holding environment like that, which is so different from the still face experiment.
yeah,
Because if she
yeah,
did that and deadpanned, there has to be, Alan Shore says most of what occurs in therapy is unconscious between the therapist and the client. That therapist holding unconscious holding environment where I
yeah,
will accept any part of you, be with you, and not abandon you or shame you, humiliating, is so healing. I don't think how you can do therapy without it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I sometimes remind myself that basically everyone who comes to therapy, and I've certainly experienced myself, but everyone who comes to therapy is actually at some place got a deep shame experience because
With
they've
the
lost
research,
contact with their self.
yeah, that's the sad part, isn't it? They don't
Yeah,
like part of themselves, so we lock it up in our unconscious so we don't feel it. We don't feel our need and vulnerability. Boy, I'm
yeah,
still thinking about it.
yeah, yeah. Mino has added um, another comment which sort of reinforces what you were saying about the holding environment, saying psychoanalytic psychodrama is also very useful for expressing and elaborating on group. So it's another, the psychodrama is would be quite a powerful methodology for expressing group for working through shame.
Al Peso, different self parts of your family, really psychodynamic groups were very powerful. He was doing about the same time bioenergetics was emerging, and they're very powerful for just that because you can put those parts out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, keep the questions coming, folks. Um, we, um, I'm not sure whether you want to talk a bit more personally. I mentioned in the introduction, Helen, that as a girl, you experienced the Ku Klux Klan, and I'm just wondering whether, um, in terms of just sharing your own experiences as a Jewish woman, in terms of the cultural shaming and the power of that and the terror of that you may have experienced as a child, whether you're wanting to share something personal.
you brought that up, and I'm feeling a lot of anxiety as an adult about it right now. Um, and this is the disclaimer. This is an honest statement. I am not doing any political organizing right now.
Right,
And I want to say that. Um, it's shame and it's fear is that I organized draft resistance. I had the names of people coming up 1A illegally to fight the army. I went on a Russian boat to Cuba. Cuba is not allowed into our country right now. Um, I gave the talk on microaggressions, and the people wouldn't talk to me when I went to this country school. They thought I had blood at Passover. I couldn't date. The Ku Klux Klan put signs up on the way to school. I didn't know about the lynching until many years later. A book came out, Fire in the Heartland. There was a lynching right near my house. Not people would say, somebody would say, well, a Jewish person was lynched there. I go, I don't think so. There was there was a lot that was not known, but known. Um, but recently, I was in London and there were the demonstrations about the hostages and things were going on. I was giving a talk at a neuroscience conference on trauma. So I was in London, um, and I got stopped 4 times by Homeland Security. I could say, "Hey, check your passport." No, we just went in. I go, "Next one, you come here." 4 people watched me. And so when I got back, and I just published that paper, I don't know, in the Bioenergetic Journal, I got back and I got right through global entry, and I thought, things are so random right now in the United States where people are targeted that it's not only a shame, there is I don't feel safe. The old anxiety. My temple has guards before you can get in. I have an experience that if the Nazis came when I was a kid, I would hit the floor and play dead. I wasn't allowed to talk about being Jewish in our hometown because we had a business, so you had to hide it. Um, and then my grandmother invited the only black woman to the hotel where they weren't allowed. Um, we were invited into the country club and we had Ku Klux Klan things burned on our lawn. So my parents are putting me out there at the same time. Like, okay. So
Yeah,
it's just this constant
yeah,
awareness of and my attachment to a black woman as a young child who took care of me and
I
feeling
remember
the
you about
profound
this.
attachment and drawn to black people.
Yeah, I
It's
remember you, Helen, I remember you talking about that song and how that got the memory back for you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. A soothing song. Just
yeah,
and very proud about being Jewish. I mean, our rabbis went to Hebrew Union College. We studied philosophy. When we ninth grade, we read philosophy books. We learned about taking care of the world and you fight for your rights. And Jews are loud and obnoxious sometimes, and I want to hide. Like, oh, please.
yeah,
I'm anti-Semitic.
yeah, yeah,
It's such a, and so shame, obviously.
yeah, yeah, huge. Yeah, yeah,
I think we all feel a lot of shame.
yeah, 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 yeah. My therapy, I had to, my masochistic structure is built for shame. And I remember having a dream of being a black woman under a rock in Australia, an outback rock. And I was this Aboriginal woman who was dead. And there was just a stream of putrefaction coming from me. And it was very powerful experience, dream experience of shame, but it sort of captured sort of the amount of shame that was in my system, and just helped me work with that. Yeah,
And as opposed to wanting to attack and scapegoat to defend, that
yeah,
image could have been, you joined in empathy,
yeah, yeah,
which is an interesting, different response than people might have made,
yeah,
and
yeah,
shows how much heart you had opened at the time.
yeah,
Your heart was so open
yeah,
to have
yeah,
that dream.
yeah. Helen, there's been a few more comments come in. Sabina says, thank you very much for your knowledge and your desire to share. And Francesca says, thank you very much. I'm studying bioenergetics in a school of specialization, and your speech has been really positive and enlightening. So people are
Wow.
expressing their appreciation. Raphael asks a question which is a wee bit um, offline, but I feel there are many convergences in sensory motor interventions. Are there also divergences? Like, I guess, in a lot of sensory motor trauma work, and she's asking what are the similarities and divergences, I guess, between sensory motor approaches and bioenergetic approaches.
Okay. A good therapist is going to provide an empathic holding environment. I watched the most famous trauma therapist do incredible work with a client, brilliant work. And then when he got done off the mat, said, remember not to walk like a duck.
Wow.
So I
Shame.
think, Shane, we have incredible parts work, I think. Ava is really good for identifying that. Trauma work is sensory motor, the CYBAM. But underneath it all, you really need to be alert. And bioenergetics was extremely guilty of this. It would undress people, say, you you're just hiding in your humiliation and you need to be more aggressive and you're being passive aggressive and like, thanks. That was really helpful. Now I feel great about myself. I'm gonna go home and feel really good. I mean, it was right, but it wasn't helpful. It was not helpful. My therapist response, shame is a racket. What she was doing was opening me my sexuality. I was feeling it on the mat. I was wondering what this overwhelming feeling of just, wow, incredible sexuality. This cannot be safe. I cannot walk out of the room like this, I'm thinking. And she's saying, oh, that's just, racket.
Yeah.
No, this is terrible. I'm charged all over.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So she didn't get it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
needed someone to say, isn't this beautiful? Aren't you experiencing the pleasure of your body? Isn't it wonderful that, I needed somebody just to hold it with me.
Yeah.
Okay, you're feeling a lot. And what isn't addressed, I don't think, enough is the counter transference of
Oh,
the therapist to the client's excitement and how they're going to hold that with them.
yeah. Yeah.
I think I see it, and therapists get afraid of their own excitement and their client's excitement,
Yeah.
and don't stay with it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so anything sensory motor, which is really good at reclaiming and all these techniques, I think what the analytic therapist was bringing up, a safe holding environment where you're really, one of the things, Shane, people need that bioenergetic exercise. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Watch how people stop it. Watch how I see this over and over again. I did it to myself. The pleasure every time I see this will come into the pelvis. They're streaming. You finally got there. You've been working on this for a year and a half or 2 years, and they're having this incredible streaming response. I'm gonna shut it down. I go, what
Yeah.
did you? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, did it
Yeah.
feel good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you tired? No. Why do you
Yeah.
stop? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting about people.
Yeah. And I think, you're right in terms of highlighting that the therapist sort of shuts or ignores or shuts down that excitement, because it could be dangerous to feel charged in the therapy room if someone is coming into their life force. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Helen, we're coming very fast towards the end, unfortunately. We're just getting warmed up.
Getting
And,
interesting.
but I'm just wondering if there's any sort of final thoughts, or maybe, you know, something positive. You listen to your 5 points, and what's the positive things that you've got out of sharing about shame in all your experience of shame and working with it?
It healed me. It's healing. I was healing myself. I went
Right.
after shame to heal what was going on in my own body.
Right.
And I had a positive awareness by preparing this that I had never, ever gotten before. And can
Right.
I share it?
Yeah.
Um, so growing up a Jew in Indiana, and I'm taking my doctoral exams, right? And they come up and tell you the sixth floor of the psych building, Wisconsin's a dust bowl. They're going to tell, never come up on the sixth floor. This is all great. McFall's on the sixth floor. This professor, somebody's, and it goes right to my office, and it goes, I want to talk to you about your exams. I said, what? He said, you did a really good job. That was a really good job. I said, wow, thanks. He said, I want you to drop out. I said, why? He said, you're not like everybody else here. You're different.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can do, yeah, you're just not like the other people. And so what I realized, I hadn't gotten last night, that I had not gotten a major advisor. He'd gotten mad and left. What I didn't know, I was told going around finding friends, he insulted them all. Carl Rogers here and you left, you were non-empathic. The American Psychological Association has put you on for the greatest research, and you're not letting your graduate students get through. And he attacked them. And what I did realize, they expected me to go with him. I didn't go, or with my boyfriend, as he was the only Jewish person on the faculty.
Wow.
I
Wow.
just got that last night. I
Wow.
wasn't like everybody else.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
And there was one Jewish student who hadn't gotten his degree in 4 years, which he published primary. There was something going on in the heartland again with some of the people that I think was unconscious on his part.
Yeah.
But then it turned out right because I ended up not going to the university jobs, turning them down. We got you these great and working on, and then becoming a bioenergetic analyst. So in a sense, he was right.
Yeah. Oh,
But
okay.
I never had gotten how I wasn't like, because my comment was, of course I'm not like everybody else. I'm a Jew from Indiana. What do you think I'm going to be like? I'm outside the fishbowl. You guys are all doing something different.
Yeah.
But I knew the fishbowl.
Yeah.
But I never put that together till last night. What he
Oh,
meant. I never knew what he meant.
oh, that's powerful. Yeah.
How you could write a great doctoral exam. And then I was made head teaching assistant, 600 students, 6 people under me, and
Wow.
still not be like everyone else.
Ooh. Wow.
Isn't that amazing? I never had gotten that till last night when you talked about being a Jew in Indiana. I went, that's what he meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if he knew.
Wow. Yeah. Well, the richness of exploration of our shame, eh? It's well
Yeah,
worth.
always felt somewhat bad about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what Carl Rogers says? I love you just the way you are.
Okay. And we love you just the way you are, Helen. And thank you very, very much for this wonderful presentation and webinar, and we've reached the end of our time.
Good. It
So
was fun. Thank you.
we love you just the way you are.
I
You
love
too.
you, Gary.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.